football team.
All right. Sorry. Where are we at?
No,
Yes.
go ahead. Take
Why
it
are
away.
you so
I
bad?
can't hear you guys.
How long do you have?
This is goofy.
Oh, now they
All
can't.
right, give me
now you
one
can't
more
hear.
second here.
I
Okay.
can tell you why they're bad. No. But just
How can Braylon Allen only get 3 carries against Northwestern?
I feel like he probably will get a little. He's get a little healthier this week. So, but I think they're going to have to really involve him in the passing game more, just because of the passing game. They've been able to pass at a consistent clip, 65% ish. For Mordecai, they haven't been able to run the ball well. So, getting him and I think getting Braylon Allen involved in the pass game is going to be really, really huge. I wish you could hear me, because I could probably tell him how to fix that too. It might have switched when he went to his audio. It might have switched to speaker.
How's
too.
that?
There we go. It sounds like you're in a wind tunnel, but
Yes.
a little better.
Just don't touch your mic.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry about that, guys.
No, you're good. You're good.
I'll be gentle. All right.
So we're going to be very blunt about this, Nick, to get you started, since we've had a bit of a rough start. And now here we go with the hardcore football analysis. Why is your team so bad?
I don't know. I really don't know right now. The transition to this air raid offense has been pretty brutal. And the lack of execution on the offensive set. Are you guys still good, or am I too much?
No, you're good. You're good.
Okay. The lack of execution from, everyone on the offense, if it's the O-line, if it's the tight ends, it's the wide receivers, it's the quarterbacks. It's just been a handful of issues. And it's, Fickle always comes back to, well, it's not really one thing. It's kind of everything. And all of these things are adding up to a really bad football team right now. Our offensive line has historically been very, very good. It's been the foundation of the program, and they have not lived up to that hype for the last 3 years, probably. Our running backs banged up right now. I think you guys may remember we started the year with Braylon Allen and Ches Malusi, which was one of the better duos in the Big Ten. Definitely rivaled what Michigan had going in Corum and Edwards, but it has completely fallen apart. Ches Malusi he broke his tibia against Purdue, and then Braylon Allen's been beat up. This has been a problem every year for him. He gets beat up this time of year. He went out against Ohio State in the third quarter, and he never came back. And then he played a couple of snaps last week against Northwestern to start the game, and they pulled him right away. And it was Jackson Aker and Cade Yakimelli playing. So that's who you'll probably see most of the time on Saturday is Cade Yakimelli and Jackson Aker. Yakimelli's more of the change of pace back. Jackson Aker's probably more of the Braylon Allen mold. I wouldn't be surprised if Allen got some touches, but I would say it's going to be closer to 10 than it is to 20 for him this week. So I have to assume, since he was almost healthy last week, healthy enough for 4 touches last week or whatever it was, I assume that he'll be healthy enough to play a few more this week, but we'll see. But there's just not a lot of execution right now. And, with a beat up running back room, we've relied a lot on the pass, and the passing offense, which is supposed to be the now featured part of the offense, has been lackluster at best. So.
Yeah. Just a quick question on Braylon Allen, because I mentioned this when you popped out for a second. With him getting a little healthier, do you think? Because I think a key will be involving him a little bit in the passing game as well. Do you think they're gonna try to involve him a little bit more in the passing game, or do you think they're just gonna kind of try to use his touches for certain situational things and run him?
Man, I mean, it's this off. I'm still getting used to this offense. And with a lot of what they've tried to do is his touches are passes as well, and they'll swing him out wide. It just, when the play developed, it's so predictable, and the problem with Braylon Allen is, he's powerful and he's strong, but he doesn't have the change of pace speed to get outside the numbers and really cause some havoc, and so sometimes he'll get 3 yards on some of those swing screen passes, and sometimes he'll lose 3 yards. It just, again, it's been this offense is just not very good. And that's kind of why I'm leaning towards picking Nebraska this week, because I'm just not sure this team is built to win in the Big Ten West as it is right now. They don't execute on the offensive side of the ball, get their 3 to 4 yards on their short passing plays or hit a couple of deep balls. They're behind the sticks, and before you know it, 3rd and 10. This is not where this team should live, and they're there way too often.
One thing though about Wisconsin's offense, I feel like the things that y'all do well are what we don't do well, because pretty consistent quarterback play, are pretty good at sustaining drives, don't turn the ball over a ton. But so do you think, like, for instance, I think the Nebraska's turnovers, are three of our losses, Minnesota, Colorado, and Michigan State. We had -3 in the turnover margin, Maryland -2. So with that, does part of you think Wisconsin might have an advantage in that regard? Because of course the turnovers are way more crippling than, the way that y'all haven't been finishing drives, but still been able to complete 65%, and sustain drives for the most part. Do you think that, with y'all's offensive struggles and our offensive struggles, because I feel like ours have been a little bit more drastic, do you think that the defensive matchup is going to be the difference there, or why you're leaning towards Nebraska in that? Because I'm almost leaning towards Wisconsin in a way because of the turnovers.
Yeah, well, I'll say this: Wisconsin hasn't forced many turnovers this year.
Yeah,
it's been one of their big issues, is that they've, in the past under Jimmy Leonard's defense, there was a lot of turnovers and kind of a ball hawking secondary, and they were able to get off the field because they were able to pressure the quarterback, and they can't do that this year.
Yeah.
So there's just I'm gonna go out on the limb and say that Nebraska's QB, whoever is playing, I've seen 3 different names this week that could all be playing. They're gonna have time to do what they need to do because of Wisconsin's lack of pass rush, and because of that, I would be surprised if Wisconsin won the turnover battle. I feel like if you give any quarterback any time at all, they're able to pick holes in this defense that's not really built for the scheme they're playing in right now.
You don't have to worry about forcing turnovers.
Yeah.
Nebraska.
We'll give you some.
Give it to you.
Hey, this is the Big Ten West, and one of the reasons why I love the way it is because it just, there's gross football all the time. And I'm excited about this game. I think it'll be good. I hope it's not as ugly as it was last week for Wisconsin against Northwestern.
It will
but
be.
It seems like whenever Nebraska and Wisconsin play, it is a good game. I mean, outside of the Big Ten championship game in 2012, the series has normally been, at least the games have normally been close. I'll say Wisconsin definitely has the nod on the series, but the games are normally pretty close. So
especially the last couple of years, like I mentioned before, you had the Adrian Martinez couldn't finish 2021, and then last year that big play to set you up to win it, albeit maybe some pass interference is missed in those games at the very, very end, but I digress.
Wisconsin's gotten their fair share of lucky calls in recent years. I will say that.
But yeah, the thing with that is just like you said, the games have been close, and I just feel like stylistically, this might be the best matchup for Nebraska as far as, but the team, the way Wisconsin isn't structured like they usually are and stuff like that, like we mentioned before. However, this is also one of the worst Nebraska offenses and quarterback rooms I've seen, I don't know, maybe ever. So it's going to be really interesting and probably really ugly, because we have a way of bringing teams into ugly dog fights.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and I've watched a few Nebraska games this year, and I know that they tend to run the ball a little bit more than they have in the past, but I'm interested to see what happens if it's just Jeff Sims back there. I think that quarterback mobility does provide a little bit of an X factor at times. And Wisconsin, same thing. Mordecai can do that too. He, has to protect his hands, his throwing hand now, because that got hurt against Iowa. But, it'll be interesting to see who is more effective, passing the ball and running the ball for sure. I don't think Wisconsin's rush offense is very good, and their passing offense is lackluster. So I really think that if Nebraska can just, take seconds off the clock by running the ball and being slow to the line and, kind of the Iowa method, they're going to win the game. Especially with how fast Wisconsin goes 3 and out, man. I mean, it is because of this air raid offense. Every play happens within, 20 seconds of each other, right? It's not the old school run the ball and let this clock tick down to 5 seconds and then run the next play anymore. This is so different. And I think if you haven't, as a Nebraska fan, watched Wisconsin yet this year, you're going to ask, what in the hell is going on over there in Madison?
Yeah, it seems to be the short to intermediate pass game that kind of works. But 86 passes from what I covered the last 2 weeks is kind of crazy.
It's just not.
Wow.
It's not winning ball in Big Ten West. And I'll say this: we have a couple of receivers that can definitely break open the game. Will Pauling is one of them. He's more of a slot wide receiver, and Bryson Green, an Oklahoma State transfer from last year, and Will Pauling's from Cincinnati. Both those guys can definitely break open the game, but it's been a problem them creating separation. So you'll see a lot of Will Pauling, and he'll probably be the primary receiver on Saturday, I would think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and on Nebraska's side, we won't know who's starting quarterback until game time. So
yeah, and who are you thinking at this point? I mean,
well, Heinrich Harburg, hurt his ankle last week, but he's
sure.
On the mend. He's going to be practicing fully tomorrow. Sims is probably the most healthy. Chubba Purdy's been dealing with a groin most of the season.
Got it.
Chubba Purdy looked the best out of all three last week.
Interesting. Okay.
Yep, he did. And
yeah. Go ahead.
He can move. He can move as well. People underestimate that.
I mean, he moved the offense down 90 yards in a flash, and if it wasn't for a blown route, they probably would have scored a touchdown.
That's been the talk of the week. That's been the talk of the week, is that play.
Hey, I'm more. I mean, I know this game matters a little bit in the Big Ten West positioning, and I've read a couple scenarios. Now, my understanding is that if Nebraska wins and then wins next week with an Iowa loss on Saturday, Nebraska would go to the Big Ten championship game.
Correct.
If Illinois wins next week and Wisconsin loses, I guess it doesn't really matter. If Illinois goes 5-4, so Nebraska would have to lose this week.
Yep.
And then Illinois would have to win Saturday and next week, right? So
for Wisconsin, they have to win out. Iowa needs to lose out, and then Illinois needs to beat Northwestern.
Yeah. It's that. I know there's a scenario, but I'm going to tell you what. I don't really want to see Wisconsin in this form against Michigan in the big, because I think Michigan's going to end up being there. I really do. And I have a feeling. I did watch that Nebraska-Michigan game, at least the first half earlier in the year. Oh, buddy, I'm sorry. That is tough. And it was just it's tough. They're
not cheating no more though, so
I don't want to get Mark started. I know there's been some. I've watched all the videos of Mark and on his Michigan soapbox. So, but yeah, I don't really want to see Wisconsin in the Big Ten championship game, but boy, oh boy, I got some Iowa fans that I'd love to get, all wound up about it if they somehow back their way into this deal. So I'm most focused for Wisconsin on the Axe next week, because that, for whatever reason, PJ Fleck has been a big pain in the butt for Wisconsin the past 5 years.
Hey, did any of the Wisconsin players even know that this is a trophy game? And do they know the name of the trophy?
I think there's always this big joke that goes around on the Wisconsin fan base, and in particular, I believe it's Zach Heilprin. He's one of the beat writers for Wisconsin, and he always tweets out every year. He's like, there was a year where Wisconsin didn't even go grab the trophy after they had won it. So yeah, this is essentially the Barry Alvarez Bowl, if anyone even knows that. And I don't know. It's
you around here.
Yep.
Yeah. Hey, listen, I would love for this to be a little bit more competitive. I guess this is the year for Nebraska. I thought last year, I guess, could have been the year too, but this is another opportunity for Nebraska. Wisconsin is not the Wisconsin of old right now.
Well, nobody around here even knows what that trophy even looks like, because we've never had it. So we asked a lot of the players that same question Tuesday, and not one of them could have named the trophy.
I'm trying to remember when was the trophy actually, because there was that year that Nebraska beat Wisconsin in Nebraska when they were wearing those weird uniforms.
Yeah, that trophy wasn't around then.
Okay, yeah, so it was right after that then, or sometime.
I think it was like 2014 or 15, something like that.
Were you guys surprised that Wisconsin and Nebraska weren't serve as rivals or protected rivals moving forward? Or
look,
I would have preferred it for sure.
Yeah.
Look at Mark go. There you go.
Hey, that's what it looks like.
Freedom Trophy. Yeah, I think it's at what, 2012?
Is that what it says?
Wait.
Freedom Trophy.
It's 12-4, so whatever that gets us to. It was started in 2012, I think. Yeah. Well, maybe that's just a Wisconsin rivalry. It's interesting. Yeah, that
started after Nebraska beat Wisconsin in 2012.
Yeah, and that's why I think
conveniently
Matt Rule mentioned like those players don't know what it is because they were all like 12 at the time or whatever they would be.
Yeah.
So the thing about Nebraska, if we win the Big Ten West, I'm cool getting killed in the championship because we can then say like we're forever Big Ten West champions. So like
just like the Gophers, huh?
I'll take
the Gophers. Do you guys know this joke that the Gophers, they tied Wisconsin for the Big Ten West in 2019, and PJ Fleck got rings made that literally said Big Ten West champions, even though Wisconsin had literally beaten them in the final game to go to Indy, and they beat them by like, I want to say it was 20 plus points. I was at the game.
You're not the champs.
I blame
you. Got to go to the championship game.
Thank you.
I blame UCF for that.
I'm real proud to be wearing that ring. Jeez.
Yeah, that's the Gopher way. Unfortunately, I live in their territory, so this game matters more to me. But again, I'll digress. Nebraska, Wisconsin. I got Nebraska narrowly on Saturday. Okay, I'm gonna say that I don't see the Badgers coming with any offense. So that's and they've only scored, like, if you look at their past 5 Big Ten games, they've only scored like 10 points. They scored 18 in the fourth quarter against Illinois a couple weeks ago, and they've only scored over the past 4 games since it's only been 10 or it's only been like 40 total points. And so it's anemic, and I think Nebraska's defense is good enough to make this a tough game for Wisconsin.
Why I'm surprised, Nick. Why I'm surprised, Nick, at Wisconsin being this bad is I totally understand. And like you said off the top, Nebraska's awful on offense as well. They've played ugly football, but I think Matt Rule was a tremendous hire. I think Luke Fickell, the same thing. This is not causing me any concern for either program long term. But the conventional thought was Wisconsin's going to stumble out of the gate. They're going to have their issues out of the gate working through this offense, new quarterback, new coordinator, new head coach, all of that. And they're just going to get better and better and better and better throughout the season. And Luke Fickell's had that track record as well as a head coach. His teams just get better and better. And the Washington State game, for as good as they looked, which they don't look that good now either, but at the time, Washington State was really good, that loss was understandable. They turned the ball over all over the place. Otherwise, they were in that game, 2-point game, 5 minutes left. So they played fairly well on the West Coast. They start their Big Ten play. Again, not a juggernaut, not a vintage Wisconsin team, but playing fairly well. They hit the Iowa game. And, the last time I saw Wisconsin play was the Ohio State game. And so they're playing one of the best teams in the country. They held up rather well. They looked capable. And so then these last
victory week.
Yes, these last few games, I was like, what in the world's happened to this team? And I know Tanner Mordecai knocked out against Iowa and Braylon Allen banged up, but still in previous iterations of Wisconsin, that front 7 on defense and that offensive line would have taken care of skill position injuries to carry the team.
2 quick things, and then I'm going to hop off. But I'll say this, Mark. This is what I really think is part of the problem. Okay, first off, there's a lack of playmakers on the defensive side of the ball this year. and it's noticeable. There is no Keanu Benton. There is no Nick Herbig. There's no pass rush. It's a big part of the problem. Except there is one guy who I would say is going to pop out to any fan who watches Wisconsin. It's going to be Hunter Waller. He's a safety. He plays this rover-like position where it's a hybrid linebacker and safety. He's all over the field. He makes tons of plays. Okay. And then the other part of this is, and again, missing from that, this is a defensive side of the ball problem. This is an offensive side of the ball problem. But I think there's some deep rooted culture issues that have been brewing for a number of years at Wisconsin. And when I say culture issues, this is what I'm going to try to point towards, or at least this is my hypothesis. Things went sour underneath Christ. And, they had these incredible recruiting classes for Wisconsin. And they were 2019, 2020, and 2021. There's some of the best recruiting classes Wisconsin's ever put together. And I think the culture issue is almost a sense of entitlement. That Wisconsin's always in the top 25 going into the year. They're always one of the favorites in the Big Ten West. It's almost automatic, and it doesn't feel like this program has had to earn much recently. And it's started to show up on the field in a bad way. And especially this year. And I think Fickell echoes that when has been talking about in his press conferences and stuff that it's his biggest challenge to date. Bigger than Cincinnati, bigger than taking over at Ohio State briefly. He said that this is his biggest challenge because I think there's an entitlement problem within the program, and they need to weed out the guys who aren't willing to put in the effort and have the right mentality going into Saturdays. So that's.
Is that what Mordecai was alluding to when he was talking about players giving him, shit?
Yeah. He said the exact same thing, right? Waller said the same thing too. He said, we need to weed out these guys who aren't ready to be on the field on Saturdays. And Mordecai, the 6-year senior, who's, a half foot, is still in the door, but the rest of the body is outside. He's really came here to win, and all he's done is, nothing really in the Big Ten West this year. So it's a jarring place to be as a program, and Fickell's going to have a lot of guys who exit this offseason, and I'm guessing he'll have a lot of guys who enter via the transfer portal. And this is a couple year outlook. I don't think you'll see the same Wisconsin for a couple years. I think year 3 of Fickell is kind of circle. Maybe sometime around there, you start to see the program trend in the right direction. But until then, this is going to be hard.
I'm fascinated with that narrative because the ultimate non-entitlement program, the one that was built on we're not entitled, we work harder than everyone, then after 25 years of that, sure, you could see that where, we always get the job done. We're always, a top 15 program.
Teams are passing them. It's Minnesota. Obviously Iowa. Wisconsin had dominated the better part of the decade against Iowa from 2020, I want to say 2008 or 2009 through 3 years ago. Wisconsin had been the better team and the better program. That's gone away. And I think Northwestern had again, in a bad year for Northwestern, Northwestern looks head and shoulders above Wisconsin. Minnesota has taken care of business against Wisconsin. No offense, but the only program who hasn't has really been Nebraska. So that's why I anticipate a change this week. And I really think this program's headed for a couple of down years, and then maybe we'll start to see the Fickell effect in year 2 or 3.
Interesting.
The ceiling for y'all is much higher than those teams, though. So that's also, it's
we'll
a transition year. So I believe the ceiling for recruiting and everything's much better for Wisconsin, especially running backs with their history of putting running backs in the NFL. So I do think, after a couple of years, they'll be, I think Minnesota and those teams are kind of at or near their ceiling.
Nick Snow, Bucky's Fifth Quarter. Nick, we so much appreciate you stopping by. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. You guys have a great weekend. Enjoy the college football and go Badgers.
Take care.
Thanks, guys.